Good evening, folks. I'm coming to you from St. Louis tonight, where I'm waiting on my friend Barbara Thomas to get in on a flight for the World Network of Prayer Conference. And no, this is not a necklace, it's my Bluetooth, okay? Anyway, have you ever felt like you didn't belong? It has a lot to do with language barriers, believe it or not. You see, it's a common occurrence for me. I'm constantly out of my comfort zone. God's constantly taking me places I didn't plan to go, meeting people I never dreamed I would meet, doing things that I thought had already passed me by. And I have a feeling it's a common occurrence for most people, but most won't admit it. And mainly, that's okay because, as I was sitting in Houston waiting to board yet another flight, or Dallas, I knew I was waiting in where I was totally out of my comfort zone this week. Well, waiting in is a problem for most of us. We get comfortable and we don't like change. We want things to stay the way they are. Change is required to destroy spiritual language barriers. So let's take a look at the disciples in Acts chapter 1 as an example. So verse 7. And he said unto them, It is not for you to know the times or the seasons which the Father hath put in his own power. But ye shall receive power after that the Holy Ghost is come upon you, and ye shall be witnesses unto me both in Jerusalem and in all Judea and in Samaria and unto the uttermost part of the earth. And when he had spoken these things, while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. And while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel, which also said, Ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Jesus, which is taken up from you into heaven, shall also come in like manner as you have seen him go into heaven. So let's look at the points. I love my points. First, Jesus says, it's not for us to know certain things or the timing of them. There are things that are only in God's power. Then he tells us, but ye shall receive power. There's no maybe in this, folks. We shall receive power. Then he says the Holy Ghost has to come first. Then he says after the Holy Ghost comes, you'll be witnesses, going everywhere, telling everyone who I am. Then after Jesus speaks, a few things happened while they watched. He was taken up, a cloud received him, and he literally vanished into the cloud. Then it says that they looked into the cloud as if they were fixed in place. In other words, they couldn't move, watching where he went up. Two men dressed in white were standing by him. And then those men spoke, and they said, You're men from Galilee, you were with Jesus. Why are you just standing there looking up at the clouds? Jesus is coming back the same way you saw him leave. As I sit here in St. Louis once again waiting, I think God is trying to give me a message that I shouldn't be in a hurry. Our spiritual language barriers with God get us into trouble. We either try to rush the process or slow the process down. The process has to be completed in God's perfect timing to fulfill God's perfect purpose and his will. As we look back at these points, it's imperative we comprehend what Jesus is teaching us by example in this passage about spiritual language barriers. No one, especially me, likes to be told there are things only in God's power. Spiritual language barriers block us from receiving blessings and power that's ours. Once we understand there are things that are only in God's power, you see, that's when we'll begin to understand the magnitude and depth of the power of God for us that we are barely tapping into. Once we begin to grasp the power we have access to, we will be more powerful witnesses. We will be more passionate about God because we know him personally. While I sit and wait for now, once my friend Barbara arrives, excitement and happiness will abound. Once we destroy those spiritual language barriers, we will once again have excitement and happiness in our relationship with Jesus. Yep, two men had to say basically, hey, quit looking at the sky. Yes, he left, but he'll return. In the meantime, don't you have something you need to do? And I think that's what Jesus is saying to us today. He's saying, hey, Quit looking around at all the bad stuff that's happening. Go to your knees about it. Don't you have some stuff you need to do for me? Don't you have some people you need to talk to about me? And in the conversation, they also basically said, aren't y'all from Galilee? Didn't he teach you as you sat around him? Don't you know who you are? Sometimes spiritual language barriers exist because we've been around so much of the power of God. We begin to think we're experts when it comes to the way that God will do things. However, God likes to surprise us. Did you ever think that maybe He'd like us to surprise Him? Maybe He wants us just to spend time with Him because we love Him. Not because we need anything, not because we want anything. Just to say we love Him. Just to show Him some unconditional love. So tonight, let's tear down those spiritual language barriers. Being prepared. So tonight, let's tear down those spiritual language barriers, being propelled into new supernatural places with Jesus. And yeah, we'll have to go outside of our comfort zones, and it won't be comfortable. But boy, when you step out, you have no clue of the power and the magnitude and the depth of what you're stepping into with Jesus. So y'all have a blessed night. Know I love you. I'm in St. Louis for the World Network of Prayer Conference. God bless y'all. It's June the 8th, 2016.